It was a normal day on Earth, just like any other. People went about their daily routines, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Across the world, governments were managing their usual issues, military forces on standby for minor conflicts, and citizens enjoying the peace they had come to expect. But in the vastness of space, something was stirring. The Galactic Council, the ruling body of the galaxy, had made a shocking decision. Without any warning, they declared war on Earth. It began with a broadcast. It wasn't like the usual news broadcasts. The screen flickered to life across the planet, and in a matter of seconds, millions of people watched, captivated by what they were seeing. A voice, deep and ominous, came over the transmission. "This is the Galactic Council," the voice said, cold and calculating. "We have deemed Earth a threat to the stability of the galaxy. Effective immediately, all communication with your planet is severed. Your species will be dealt with." The message was clear, terrifying, and utterly unexpected. The people of Earth sat frozen in their seats, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. Was this a joke, an elaborate hoax? No one could believe it. The Galactic Council was not a name anyone had heard of before. The Council was said to be the most powerful alliance of civilizations across the galaxy, with a fleet that could wipe out entire planets with ease. And now, for reasons unknown, Earth was being targeted. For days, Earth's leaders scrambled to make sense of the situation. The United Nations held emergency meetings. The military went into a state of high alert. Experts were brought in to analyze the Galactic Council's message, but they had no answers. There was no history of conflict with this so-called council. Earth had barely even made contact with alien species, and the humans on Earth hadn't done anything to provoke such a brutal response. And yet, the very next day, the alien fleet arrived. Massive ships, beyond anything Earth's military had ever seen, appeared in the sky. The world watched as they blocked out the sun, casting enormous shadows over the planet. The ships hovered above major cities, their metal surfaces gleaming in the daylight, and the air was filled with a low, ominous hum. The first attack came swiftly, a rain of energy beams that hit strategic locations, knocking out power grids, communication lines, and military bases. Panic spread like wildfire. People ran through the streets, seeking shelter. Governments tried to organize a defense, but it was too late. Earth's military, though powerful by human standards, was nothing compared to the advanced alien technology now attacking their cities. Human forces were being overwhelmed. Fighter jets were shot down in seconds, and tanks were reduced to molten rubble. The aliens seemed to anticipate every move, and it felt like the very air was working against Earth's defenders. Amidst the chaos, one question echoed in the minds of every person on Earth. Why? Why was this happening? What had Earth done to deserve this sudden, brutal attack? As the days passed, the situation grew more dire. The alien fleet spread out, making it impossible for Earth's military to mount a counterattack. Destruction was everywhere. Major cities like New York, London, and Tokyo were reduced to rubble. Entire governments fell apart, unable to respond to the overwhelming force that was tearing the planet apart. There was no clear strategy for defense. Panic took hold, and people struggled to find a way to survive. In the midst of the destruction, there was one individual who refused to give up hope. General Marcus Sullivan, a high-ranking officer in Earth's military, had seen many battles in his time, but nothing compared to this. He watched helplessly as his forces were crushed. And yet, even in the face of certain defeat, he could not accept the idea of surrendering to the alien invaders. "We have to fight back," he said, his voice steady, but filled with determination. "We can't just roll over and die." But how could they fight back? What could they possibly do against an enemy so powerful? General Sullivan gathered Earth's top scientists, strategists, and military commanders, hoping to find a solution. They spent long hours brainstorming, but nothing seemed to be enough. The aliens had technology that was light years ahead of Earth's best inventions. It was at this moment of despair that a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of scientists working in a remote lab had discovered something. A piece of technology buried in the ruins of an ancient human civilization, something no one had known existed. It was an energy weapon unlike anything Earth had ever seen, potentially capable of giving humanity a fighting chance. The scientists, desperate and with no other option, began working day and night to activate the weapon. The word quickly spread, and despite everything that had been happening, a sense of hope slowly began to return. The weapon could be their salvation, but would it be enough to stop the destruction? Would it be enough to challenge the mighty fleet of the Galactic Council? Earth's leaders made a decision. They would attempt to use the weapon. It was their last hope. As General Sullivan stood before his people, ready to unleash the weapon, the reality of what was about to happen hit him. This was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a fight to show the galaxy that humanity would not be defeated. The unexpected war had begun, and humanity was not ready to back down. The world stood still, gripped by an unease that no one had ever felt before. Earth had just received the first blow of a battle unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The Galactic Council's fleet hovered ominously above Earth, their weapons ready to destroy, their purpose still unclear. The days following the initial assault were filled with fear and confusion, but beneath the surface, a plan was being formed, one that would shock the invaders and perhaps change the course of history. In the heart of Earth's last remaining military base, General Marcus Sullivan stood before his team of strategists, scientists, and engineers. Despite the devastation, despite the overwhelming odds, there was a glimmer of hope. The energy weapon they had uncovered was a mystery, but it was humanity's last chance to survive. The weapon is ready, Dr. Emily Carter, a leading scientist on the project, announced, her voice steady, but filled with an undercurrent of excitement. She was the one who had decoded the ancient technology that had been buried for centuries, a forgotten relic of Earth's past. The energy weapon, though unlike anything humanity had ever seen, was their best shot. It had the potential to take down an alien ship, if they could make it work. The plan was simple, but extremely risky. They would target the flagship of the Galactic Council, the largest and most heavily armed ship in their fleet. If they could disable it, it might send a message to the invaders that Earth wasn't just going to lie down and surrender. General Sullivan stood in front of the team, his face grim but determined. "We don't have much time. If we don't strike soon, we might not get another chance. This weapon is our only hope. We have to be ready to make a move." The countdown began. Outside the base, the sky was darkened by the massive fleet that loomed overhead. Every minute felt like an eternity as the tension grew. Earth's defense forces had done everything they could to fight back, but it was clear they were outmatched. Cities lay in ruins, and the alien fleet seemed to be getting stronger with each passing hour. Yet the weapon gave humanity a spark of hope. As the final adjustments were made to the weapon, General Sullivan's thoughts were on the people of Earth. The devastation they had already endured weighed heavily on him, but there was no time for regret. The fight was happening now, and he was going to give everything to protect his planet. In a war room deep within the underground facility, the team worked feverishly to fine-tune the weapon. Dr. Carter and her colleagues were ready to fire it at a moment's notice. Every detail mattered. They were unsure if the weapon would even work, but they had no choice. At the same time, across the globe, the world's military forces were scrambling to prepare for a counterattack. Fighter jets took off from every runway, launching into the air to engage the alien ships. Though it seemed hopeless, Earth's military forces would do everything they could to buy time for the weapon to be activated. The sheer courage of humanity's soldiers was on full display as they bravely took to the skies, fighting even knowing they were outgunned. Then the moment arrived. The weapon was ready. General Sullivan stood tall, his eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. He gave a single nod. "Activate the weapon," he ordered. There was a moment of silence, and then a deafening hum filled the room as the energy weapon powered up. A brilliant beam of light shot out from the facility, cutting through the atmosphere with blinding intensity. It rocketed upward, piercing the sky, heading straight for the flagship of the Galactic Council. The world watched in awe as the beam reached its target. For a split second, time seemed to stop. And then there was an explosion, a massive burst of energy that shook the entire planet. The beam hit the flagship, and the ship shuddered violently. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but the ship's shields flickered and failed. The Galactic Council had been struck. Earth had finally made its mark. For the first time in the battle, there was a sign of vulnerability in the alien fleet. The shockwave from the blast rattled the ships around the flagship, and they hesitated. The invaders had not expected resistance like this. In the Galactic Council's eyes, humanity had been nothing more than an insignificant species, unworthy of even a glance. But this attack, this unexpected response, was something entirely different. It was a message. Humanity wasn't going to go down without a fight. The alien ships quickly regrouped, their energy weapons now targeting the source of the blast. Earth's forces scrambled to defend themselves, knowing that this moment of success would likely be short-lived. The enemy would retaliate, and the real battle was just beginning. General Sullivan, standing in front of the battle map, knew that this was just the start. Earth had made its first move, and the Galactic Council had felt it. But there was no time for celebration. They had struck first, but the aliens would respond with everything they had. It would be up to humanity to keep pushing, to show the galaxy that they would never surrender. And so, the battle began in earnest. Humanity had made its move. Now it was time to prove that they were far from powerless. The air was thick with tension. The shockwaves from the energy blast had barely settled before the alien fleet began to regroup. The Galactic Council, stunned by the audacity of Earth's response, wasted no time in retaliating. They launched a volley of devastating energy blasts at Earth's atmosphere, their weapons tearing through the sky like lightning. Cities that had only just begun to rebuild after the first wave of destruction were now under direct threat once again. Yet, amidst the chaos, something remarkable was unfolding. The Earth's military, though vastly outmatched, stood firm. Fighter jets and defense units scrambled into the skies, intercepting the alien missiles before they could reach their targets. Despite their losses, humanity's forces fought with a courage that could not be quantified. General Marcus Sullivan, standing at the heart of Earth's command center, looked out at the battle unfolding on the screens before him. His face was a picture of determination, his eyes burning with resolve. The alien fleet may have been overwhelming, but he was not going to let Earth fall without one hell of a fight. "Get me the next strike plan," he ordered. "We've only wounded them. Now, we finish this." The plan wasn't simple. The Galactic Council's fleet was massive, each ship a fortress of unimaginable power. Earth's forces were small in comparison, their technology far less advanced. But humanity had something that the aliens didn't: creativity. The human mind had an unmatched ability to adapt, to improvise, and to innovate under pressure. In the underground war room, scientists and engineers worked around the clock, frantically developing new technologies to counter the alien threat. The energy weapon that had struck the flagship of the Galactic Council was only the beginning. Dr. Emily Carter, the scientist who had unlocked the secrets of the alien technology, was now leading the charge on an even more ambitious project. "We can use their own tech against them," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady but filled with excitement. "We've analyzed their weapon systems. With some modifications, we can turn their own energy beams into a weapon of our own." It was a dangerous gamble. No one knew for sure if it would work, but humanity had no other choice. They had to fight back with everything they had. If Earth fell, the Galactic Council would move on to the next planet, and humanity would be lost forever. They couldn't afford to lose. As the countdown for the next strike began, the world watched in anticipation. Humanity had already shown that it wasn't going down quietly. The Galactic Council's response to the energy weapon had been swift, but their attack had not been without casualties. Earth's fighters were now more than just soldiers. They were symbols of human defiance. In the middle of the battle, however, there was still doubt. No one knew how long Earth could hold out against the seemingly endless fleet of the Galactic Council. Each minute felt like an eternity, as the alien ships unleashed wave after wave of destruction. But with every passing hour, humanity grew stronger. The alien fleet may have been vast, but Earth's will was unbreakable. General Sullivan turned to his team as the next strike approached. "This is it," he said, his voice firm. "We've shown them we're not weak. Now we show them what we're capable of." With that, Earth's forces launched their counteroffensive. The sky erupted with flashes of light as fighter jets, now armed with newly designed weapons based on alien tech, soared toward the enemy fleet. Their mission was clear: take down as many ships as possible, disrupt their coordination, and give Earth's forces a fighting chance. The battle raged on. Earth's forces moved in tight formations, using every ounce of their ingenuity to stay one step ahead of the invaders. They deployed every trick they could think of, from decoy ships to advanced electronic warfare systems that scrambled the aliens' communications. They even used the energy weapon that had previously struck the Galactic Council flagship, modifying it to fire in bursts, keeping the alien fleet on edge. As the hours ticked by, humanity's forces managed to hold their own. The Galactic Council was beginning to feel the pressure. Ships that had once seemed invincible were now taking damage. The invaders had underestimated the resourcefulness of humanity, and they were starting to realize their mistake. But this was just the beginning. Earth had struck back, and the battle had only intensified. The Galactic Council would not simply surrender. They would come for Earth with everything they had, and humanity would have to fight even harder to survive. In the command center, General Sullivan's expression was unwavering. "We've made them bleed. Now we push." As the day turned to night, the outcome of this war hung in the balance. The fight for Earth was far from over, but humanity's response had shaken the Galactic Council to its core. They were no longer seen as a helpless, defenseless species. They had proven themselves as fierce warriors, capable of standing up to the most powerful force in the galaxy. For the first time since the Galactic Council declared war, Earth had the upper hand. The battle was far from won, but humanity's courage and resolve had turned the tide. It was a victory in the making, a victory that would echo through the stars for years to come. The war was not over, but humanity had made it clear. They were not to be underestimated. The battle was far from over. As the skies above Earth were filled with flashes of light and thunderous blasts, both the invaders and defenders were bracing for what was to come. The Galactic Council had not expected humanity to react with such resilience, but they were not ones to back down. Their next move would be devastating. In the command center of Earth's defense forces, General Sullivan watched the screens, his brow furrowed in concentration. The Earth had lost many soldiers in the past few hours, and the alien ships were relentless. But then, an idea began to form in his mind, one that had the potential to change the course of the war. "Dr. Carter, how much longer until the new weapon is ready?" Sullivan asked, his voice steady but full of urgency. Dr. Carter was one of the brilliant minds who had been working tirelessly to develop a countermeasure to the Galactic Council's technology. She looked up from her terminal, sweat trickling down her face as she ran a final series of tests. "We're almost there," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and exhaustion. "If this works, we'll have the upper hand. But it's risky. We need to deploy it at the right moment." Sullivan nodded. "We don't have much time. I'm giving you everything we've got. Get it done." The new weapon that Earth had been developing was based on the very technology that the Galactic Council had used to devastate entire planets. Dr. Carter had discovered a way to reverse engineer their energy weapon, turning it into a device that could disrupt the Council's ships from within. It wasn't just a weapon, it was humanity's last chance at survival. The weapon was a complex piece of technology, designed to be deployed at a critical point during the battle. It was a small device, about the size of a fighter jet, but packed with enough power to disrupt the energy shields of the alien fleet. The key was that it didn't just attack from the outside. Instead, it created a feedback loop within the Council's ship systems, rendering their shields useless and leaving them vulnerable to direct strikes. However, the weapon was untested, and there was no guarantee that it would work. If it failed, humanity's defense would crumble. The Galactic Council would unleash their full fury, and Earth might never recover. As the minutes passed, the tension in the command center reached a fever pitch. The alien fleet had broken through Earth's outer defense lines and was now moving in to strike the planet's most critical cities. The situation was dire. General Sullivan knew that this was the moment. If they were going to win, they needed to act fast. "Prepare the weapon for launch," Sullivan ordered, his voice steady despite the overwhelming pressure. "We're ready, General," one of the technicians responded. The weapon, a sleek, deadly device, was carried by one of Earth's last remaining fighter squadrons. The pilots who volunteered for this mission knew that they were flying into the heart of the storm and that their chances of survival were slim. But they were human, and they fought for one thing: the survival of their planet. "Stay focused," Captain Laura Morgan, the leader of the squadron, transmitted over the comms. "We've got one shot at this. Don't screw it up." The pilots zoomed toward the alien fleet, dodging incoming fire and using their superior agility to outmaneuver the larger enemy ships. Their target was the flagship of the Galactic Council, the command center of the entire fleet. The massive ship loomed ahead, a symbol of the Council's might. The Earth pilots knew that they couldn't destroy it outright. They didn't have the firepower. But the new weapon, if deployed correctly, could bring down its shields and open it up to direct assault. "On my mark," Captain Morgan said. "Ready? Now." With a powerful jolt, the weapon was launched. It streaked through the sky, a blur of light cutting through the darkness. The Galactic Council flagship's sensors barely registered the attack before the feedback loop began. The entire alien ship shuddered as its shields flickered and failed. Inside, the alien crew was thrown into chaos. The technology they had so confidently relied on was failing, and they had no idea how to counter it. The ship, once invulnerable, was now exposed. The Earth fighters wasted no time. With their path clear, they swooped in, launching missiles and laser fire at the disabled ship. Explosions erupted across the hull as the alien ship struggled to recover. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and it had cost them dearly. Back in the command center, Dr. Carter and the rest of the scientists watched in awe as the weapon had the desired effect. "It's working," she exclaimed. "We've done it." But Sullivan remained calm, watching the battle unfold. "It's not over yet," he said. "We've only just begun." The Galactic Council flagship, now crippled, was no longer a threat. But the rest of the fleet was still very much intact, and the war raged on. Yet humanity had just shown the invaders something they hadn't expected. They had shown them that they could fight back, no matter the odds. For the first time since the war began, the tide was shifting. Humanity had proven that they were not to be underestimated. The Galactic Council may have declared war, but humanity's bold move had changed everything. The battle had been raging for hours, but for the first time since the Galactic Council's invasion, hope flickered on Earth. The unexpected success of humanity's weapon had dealt a significant blow to the invaders, but there was still a long road ahead. General Sullivan knew this was only the beginning of a counteroffensive that would determine the fate of their planet. As the crippled flagship of the Galactic Council drifted in space, disabled and vulnerable, Sullivan's voice rang out over the comms system, rallying his troops. "This is our moment. The Council thought they could crush us. Now it's time to show them what we're made of. We take the fight to them." The Earth forces had been battered, but the unexpected success of their new weapon had breathed new life into their morale. The Galactic Council's fleet, once confident in their superiority, was reeling from the effects of the feedback loop that had crippled their flagship and left their technology in disarray. Inside Earth's command center, Dr. Carter, her eyes wide with disbelief, watched the data streaming across her terminal. The weapon had not only disabled the Council flagship, but had also created a ripple effect, disrupting several other ships in the fleet. The Galactic Council's advanced technology, once thought to be unbeatable, had been thrown into chaos. "We have to capitalize on this," she said urgently. "If we can hit them with everything we've got now, we might just have a chance." General Sullivan stood at the head of the command center, his gaze unwavering. He had seen many battles in his career, but nothing compared to the scale of what was happening now. The Council had underestimated humanity's strength, but they were about to learn that underestimating the Earth's will to survive was a fatal mistake. "Deploy all available forces," Sullivan ordered. "Prepare for a full counterattack. Our target is their command ships. They can't lead if they can't communicate. We cripple their leadership, and the rest will fall apart." Earth's forces, once scattered and outmatched, were now united and emboldened. Squadrons of fighter jets, equipped with Earth's new weaponry, soared toward the alien fleet. Each ship and fighter had one mission: to disrupt the Council's ability to communicate and coordinate their efforts. "Captain Morgan, take your squadron and hit their supply ships. If we can starve them of resources, they'll be forced to retreat," Sullivan ordered. "Understood, General," Captain Morgan replied, her voice steely and calm despite the chaos around her. The pilots, all survivors of the earlier battle, were ready for whatever came next. They had just witnessed Earth's first successful strike against the Galactic Council, and the sight of their enemy's vulnerability was all the motivation they needed. With a coordinated attack, they launched their assault on the nearest supply ships, cutting off critical resources and further weakening the enemy's forces. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's military forces were preparing for a different kind of attack. With the Council's ships disoriented, Earth's armies launched a full-scale invasion on key alien ground positions, sending their enemies into disarray. The Galactic Council, which had once held the upper hand, was now fighting on two fronts: in space and on Earth's surface. Back in space, General Sullivan's command ship was in the thick of the action, weaving through blasts and debris as the Earth forces fought back with everything they had. Despite their technological disadvantage, humanity had a resilience that the Council couldn't predict. The aliens had come to conquer, but what they had found instead was a planet full of warriors who refused to surrender. "This is it, folks. We take the fight to them. No retreat, no surrender." Captain Morgan's voice echoed over the comms as her squadron danced around the alien vessels, dodging fire and striking back with deadly accuracy. The alien ships, once full of confidence, were now struggling to maintain cohesion. As the Earth forces hit their communication hubs, the Galactic Council's ships began to move erratically, unable to coordinate their attacks. Without their leadership, the Council was in chaos. On the ground, Earth's forces had managed to infiltrate a critical alien stronghold, planting explosives in strategic locations. A massive explosion shook the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the Council's ranks. The invasion was succeeding. Earth's forces were gaining ground, and the once feared Galactic Council was losing their grip. Dr. Carter stood at her console, monitoring the data from Earth's ground forces and space battles. The weapons' effects were far-reaching. The disruption was more widespread than anyone had anticipated, and it was taking a toll on the alien fleet. "It's working. They're losing control," Dr. Carter exclaimed, her voice shaking with a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "We've turned the tide." But despite the success of the counterattack, Sullivan knew that this victory would not come easily. The Galactic Council would not abandon their plans so quickly. They were formidable enemies, and they would regroup, adapt, and retaliate. But now, for the first time, humanity had shown that they could fight back with intelligence, creativity, and sheer determination. The message was clear: Earth would not go down without a fight. As the battle raged on, the final question remained: would humanity's bold move be enough to end the Galactic Council's invasion, Or was this only the beginning of an even greater struggle? The unexpected turn of events had stunned the Galactic Council. Earth's counterattack, swift and devastating, had crippled their fleet in ways no one had predicted. Ships were disabled, communication lines were severed, and their once unshakable command structure was crumbling. Yet, the Galactic Council wasn't about to admit defeat. Not yet. They had underestimated humanity, but they were about to unleash their full wrath in retaliation. Back on Earth, General Sullivan and his command team sat in the heart of their military operations center. The tension in the room was palpable. They had landed a significant blow, but everyone knew the fight wasn't over. In fact, it was far from over. "We can't let up," General Sullivan said, his voice grim but resolute. "They're going to retaliate. We've made them angry. And when they strike back, it will be brutal." Dr. Carter, still managing the operations from Earth's tech center, nodded. Her face was drawn with fatigue, but her mind was sharp. "We've slowed them down. Their fleet is in disarray. But they'll regroup. They'll come at us with everything they have. We need to be ready." Outside, the Earth's skies were clear, but that peace wouldn't last. It was only a matter of time before the Council came back with their vengeance, and humanity had to be prepared. As the hours passed, the atmosphere on Earth shifted from cautious optimism to a sense of heavy anticipation. Earth had taken its first real victory, but in the cold expanse of space, the Galactic Council was rebuilding its forces. The alien fleets were regrouping, and their leaders were enraged. The Earth had dared to strike back, and they would pay for it. Inside the high chambers of the Galactic Council's flagship, the leaders convened in silence, their faces cold and calculated. Supreme Commander Zartuk, the head of the invasion forces, stood before a giant hologram of Earth. His expression was one of pure fury. "They dare challenge us," Zartuk growled. "We will make them regret it." The Council had anticipated a quick and easy victory. Earth was nothing more than a primitive world, a tiny speck in the vastness of the galaxy. Yet, in their arrogance, they had failed to consider one key element: humanity's spirit. Zartuk turned to his council of warlords, each one powerful and feared in their own right. "Prepare the fleet. We will strike with everything we have. Earth will learn the true cost of defying the Galactic Council." In the command center on Earth, Dr. Carter's fingers flew over the consoles, reading the incoming data. The signs were unmistakable. The Galactic Council was mobilizing again. "They're coming. Fast," she whispered, barely able to contain the urgency in her voice. General Sullivan's face hardened. "I knew it was coming. We've bought ourselves some time, but now we need to fight harder than ever." Across the globe, military leaders were briefed on the situation. Every nation on Earth now knew that this was no longer just a war for survival. It was a war for the very soul of humanity. No one could afford to stand down. No one could afford to lose. As the final preparations were made, General Sullivan knew that the coming battle would be like nothing Earth had ever faced. The Galactic Council had enormous resources, advanced weaponry, and a centuries-old empire behind them. But humanity had something more, something that the invaders had yet to understand: a fighting spirit that couldn't be extinguished. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Galactic Council's forces prepared to strike. Their ships, now fully repaired and equipped with deadly weapons, lined up in formation, preparing for a cataclysmic assault. The commander had made his orders clear: Earth would pay the price for its defiance. As the first wave of alien warships exited hyperspace and entered Earth's orbit, the sky above Earth darkened. The light from the sun was blotted out by the massive shadow of the incoming fleet. The sheer size and power of the alien ships were enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. General Sullivan's voice came over the comms, steady and unyielding. "Prepare for impact. We will not let them take our world." Humanity's first victory had been a fluke to the Galactic Council. But now, with their overwhelming force, they would show the humans just how powerful they truly were. Across the globe, The Earth forces readied their defenses. The Earth military had been rearmed and restructured after the previous attack, and now they had one goal in mind: survival. The weapons Dr. Carter had developed, which had proven so effective in the initial battle, were now Earth's last line of defense. In the skies, humanity's fighters took off, their engines roaring as they faced the massive alien fleet. The planes were no longer just tools of war. They were symbols of resistance, of defiance, and of humanity's will to survive. The fleet of Earth fighters, some new and some older models, streaked across the sky, preparing for a confrontation that would either save or doom their species. The battle began with an explosion of sound as the two forces collided. Alien ships fired beams of energy, cutting through the skies, while Earth's fighters darted and weaved, dodging the onslaught. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity refused to back down. In space, the fight raged on, the stakes higher than ever. The Galactic Council's retaliation had begun, and Earth's fight for survival had entered a new phase, one that would test humanity's limits. Would their courage be enough to overcome the might of the Galactic Empire, or would this be the last stand for Earth? The outcome was uncertain, and the battle was just beginning. Would humanity's response be enough to turn the tide of this galactic war, or was it too little, too late? The answer would come soon enough, but until then, Earth's brave defenders would fight with everything they had, determined to prove that no empire, no matter how vast, could ever crush the spirit of humanity. The battle above Earth raged on, growing fiercer with each passing hour. The Galactic Council's fleet, vast and powerful, launched a relentless barrage at Earth's forces, seeking to break the resolve of humanity. Their weapons were devastating, their tactics brutal. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's fighters continued to resist, refusing to surrender or yield. On the ground, General Sullivan watched the unfolding chaos from his command center. The situation was growing dire. Alien warships now filled Earth's skies, casting long shadows over the cities below. Earth's fighters, though brave, were beginning to show signs of wear. Their numbers were dwindling, and the alien fleet seemed to be getting stronger with each wave. But General Sullivan refused to accept defeat. He had seen too many battles, too many wars, to allow the fight to end like this. He knew that humanity had something the Galactic Council would never understand: determination. He turned to Dr. Carter, who was frantically working at her station. "Doctor, how long until the next wave?" "Less than 10 minutes, she replied, her voice tense. "They're coming in hot. We can't hold them off much longer with the current resources. We need a game changer." Sullivan's mind raced. Earth had already made incredible strides with the weapons and technology Dr. Carter had developed. But was it enough? Was there one more move, one last strategy that could turn the tide? Just then, an idea struck him like a lightning bolt. He knew it was risky. It could cost them everything. But if they didn't act now, humanity might not have a chance. He turned to Dr. Carter with newfound urgency. "Prepare the deep space ion cannon," he said. "We're going to hit them where it hurts." The deep space ion cannon was a top-secret project that had been under development for years. It had never been tested in battle, but it was Earth's final hope, a weapon that could potentially cripple the entire galactic fleet in one strike. The technology was experimental, but if it worked, it could change the course of the war in an instant. Dr. Carter's eyes widened in understanding. She knew what Sullivan was suggesting. "You're planning to fire it at the heart of their fleet." Sullivan nodded. "If we do this right, we might just give humanity a chance to win. But it has to be done precisely. If we miss, we're done for." The countdown began, and every moment felt like an eternity. The deep space ion cannon, built into the heart of Earth's most fortified military base, powered up. The immense weapon hummed with energy as its massive charge began to build. The Galactic Fleet, unaware of the trap being set, continued its attack on Earth. Their commanders were confident that victory was within their grasp. But as they closed in on Earth, they didn't realize that humanity was preparing its most powerful weapon yet. In the heart of space, the alien fleet advanced, confident in their overwhelming strength. But just as they reached Earth's orbit, something strange began to happen. A massive energy pulse rippled through space, a surge of raw power that could only mean one thing. Earth had unleashed its final weapon. The ion cannon fired, sending a beam of devastating energy streaking across space, faster than anything the alien fleet had ever encountered. The beam hit the heart of the Galactic Council's fleet, and in an instant, chaos erupted. The alien ships, once invincible, began to break apart. Their shields shattered, their engines went dark, and their massive warships spun out of control. The energy pulse from the ion cannon had disrupted the core of the alien fleet, sending shockwaves through their ranks. For the first time in this war, the Galactic Council was on the defensive. Earth's forces, now emboldened by the success of the ion cannon, rallied, launching a new wave of counterattacks against the weakened enemy. Fighters and ground forces, all working in unison, pushed back the invaders with newfound determination. On Earth, General Sullivan watched in awe as the alien fleet faltered. It wasn't a complete victory yet, but humanity had struck a blow that the Galactic Council had never anticipated. The balance of power had shifted. "This is it," Sullivan said, his voice filled with a sense of urgency. "Now we push forward. We finish this." Dr. Carter was already issuing orders, coordinating with military leaders across the globe. Humanity's forces, once outmatched, were now fighting with everything they had. The alien fleet, though still formidable, was beginning to fall apart under the onslaught. The Galactic Council, stunned by the ferocity and unpredictability of humanity's response, was now struggling to hold its ground. The tables had turned, and Earth's defenders were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory. As the battle continued, the Galactic Council's forces began to retreat, their once mighty fleet losing its grip on the war. The Galactic Empire, which had once thought of humanity as an insignificant species, was now realizing that they had underestimated Earth's resolve. General Sullivan stood tall, watching the retreating alien ships with a sense of pride. Earth had faced impossible odds, but it had stood its ground. Humanity had proven that it would not be easily defeated, no matter the enemy. The war was not over yet, but Earth's victory was within reach. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's strength, and now they would pay the price. The battle for Earth had shifted, and the invaders had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the power of a species willing to fight for its survival.